Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be here to speak about the sustainability in cosmetic production. I'm pleased to be one of the partners of the amazing eco-efficient project that is more or less all the way. And then now I'm very happy to introduce you to one of the parts, the several parts in which eco-efficient is moving on. And then in specific, this specific case is about the cosmetic stream and the value chain. In the session today, I will speak for about half of the session, 1 hour, about the introduction to the cosmetic rules, cosmetic regulation, because it is a regulation that affects a lot, by technical point of view, what it is allowed and what is not. Because of course, one of the goals of the project is to come to find something with a value that can be converted into ingredients for cosmetics, and then of course the compliance with the regulation, with the requirements are a very important part. Otherwise, there should be an obstacle that can create problems, and then some of value can be lost during the process. On the second part will be concerning another important as well, that is another issue that is very important, is concerning good manufacturing practice. The good manufacturing practice, or that means how all the components that are coming to be part of cosmetics must be manufactured and purified and accepted, so that the ingredients I am able to purify can be in a realistic and reliable way presented to the market. And then this is the goal, of the main goal of the eco-efficient. It is in the stream of the Green Deal in Europe, also to convert what is a waste or something that is a potential pollutant in something that is impacted as less as possible. And in this case, the aim is a negative impact, so to convert something that could be in a waste or something pollutant in something that is not pollutant, that is useful. I'll start with an introduction, the basics of eco-efficient, and then, as I was just studying now, is to convert waste, several of them. So the part of the fish that are not consumed, that are not addressed to the food chain. The volume, as you know from the other training session, the volume of the fish waste is huge, because they a big amount of fish that are catch, or they are in the come si dice, allevamento, I don't find the English word, anyway, the fishing, and then a huge part of that are unfortunately coming to be a discard and then a waste. That is involving me and my team is concerning cosmetics, and then there are several partners involved in cosmetics value chain. My role is to supervise and to guarantee that all the requirements are fitting, and then we reach all the requirements by the regulation. And this is what I will speak about today. To understand well how everything has to be made, it's very important to know from the beginning the basis of the European regulation about the cosmetics, and then that will be more easy to understand how we can adapt all the process from the eco-efficient to be sure that we don't have any surprise, any obstacle in the future in production and the future placing into the market the ingredients for the cosmetic products. The process, as you know, I will not go in details in there, because there are other sessions and other speakers will do. Is the waste stream from food. There are many steps to come to the final cosmetics, even if we're able to create small samples of that with other partners. But the scaling up of all the process concerns many steps, and then they are summarized here. And then basically we're starting from waste streams, and then from them, now I jump to the next step is this extraction. While just for you to know, there are many intermediate steps between to waste as is to the extraction, because of course, as you can easily imagine, the waste from fish is easy to have a degradation, bacterial degradation. That means not only bad smell or contaminants, but the bacteria, they basically are getting to eat things, then to change the molecular structure and the contents of any substrate. So it's very important, and one of the goal of the project is how to stabilize with a proper process, and the challenge is not only to stabilize, to dry, or to get them in powder. The big goal is to do everything within the sustainable process, and this is the real challenge of the whole process, of the whole project. And then coming to the step of extraction, of course, this is just to give you a short overview, just to have an idea of the complete scenario. The extraction is another very important step in which we identified some molecule that has a value in the market of the cosmetics, and there are a couple of molecules we identified, and they are commonly used. And for this reason, that would facilitate a lot the whole process, because we will not get into create unknown molecules, even if the fishes and the biological materials is a starting point, as they're probably rich of many of them. But at this point of the process of the project, it's very important to focus on something that is well known, well accepted from the market, and is facilitating a lot, because as you will see in the next slides and next part of the presentation, the level of novelty of ingredients in cosmetic fields gives a huge impact on all the other steps that has to be done. And later you will see why. And then, well, luckily, the most of the fish discard are rich of a couple of ingredients, couple of molecules, collagen or other kind of correlated protein, collagenic or not collagenic proteins, and the PUFA, so polyunsaturated fatty acids. Of course, both those are components that may have a use even in food market of dietary supplements, for example. But in this case, we are speaking about the way towards the cosmetics for many reasons. There is a request. Just for you to know, well, a coefficient is moving in the both direction. So we're getting to select and to purify something that will be in our intention and ingredients in the market for cosmetics. The other part is for dietary supplements and many other. Just for you to know, the difference between cosmetics and food is that the ratio of the volumes is different, because basically the volume of the substances used in cosmetics is 10 times less than food. If you speak roughly just how much you eat every day in terms of just the weight, with pasta, meat, vegetables, while on the other hand, we can just weight the amount of cosmetics that we apply on ourselves in terms of shampoo or toothpaste, and giving a hydrating cream or makeup or anything else. Roughly, if you speak about that, the ratio between what we eat and what we spread on our skin is more or less 1 to 10. And this is the same in the larger scale in the market. But the cosmetic field is very interesting in any case, because even if the volume is 10 times less, because the average cost, average pricing, average budget, individual budget that any person investor in cosmetics versus food or eating is very different. So usually the budget we spent is, we say, just a prudential calculation will be 10 times more, but I believe it's more than 10 times the ratio. We usually spend much more in cosmetics than for food. And this is the reason why both fields and both value chain are very interesting, even if the volume are different. Coming back to these steps, look at the process. Another focus point for the process coming to the ingredients and final cosmetics is individuating the proper parameters, because as you can imagine, any process, even if, well, we established well that the raw material and ingredients we are getting to select and purify and place in the market are well known. Both collagen, collagenic proteins or not collagenic proteins or PUFA are very well known in cosmetics. They are very well adopted since many years. And this facilitates a lot. Then another advantage of this approach is that we know very well what to expect, or what are the requirements or the specifications that the authorities and the companies can expect from those specific raw materials that are well known. We must do select parameters, because even if the collagen is well known, it is broadly used by companies, and the PUFA as well. Their origin is different. It's completely different, because most of the collagen is used in cosmetics is from animals, is from discarded part or bovines, and then the process for purifying the byproducts I can expect are different. Moreover, the process that are currently adopted for purifying the collagen sometimes are from tens years ago, even if they were improved and they are getting to improve year after year, but they are not a new kind of process, and then their impact on the environment, it should be, I expect it should be worse than what we are looking for. Given this, this is just to say that we cannot take the parameters that we find in the collagen we find today in the market, and then as they are to expect and to apply into our collagen or PUFA, because their origin is different, their source is different, the process is different, and then we must to select them, and then to identify them. To one of the steps or one of the roles from my team involved, and my team, we are in charge for the regulatory part, is to supervise and to give an indication and to approve in some way which parameters we can have to consider, given not only the molecule itself, but the whole process and all the criticalities, because criticalities that can be reflected in the final products can come from the whole process. So the same ingredients, it is from synthesis from petroleum derivatives, or from purifying vegetal source, or from biotechnology, the same molecule can, it is for sure polluted by completely different potential impurities. And then for this reason, we must work on this. And then the goal is to introduce the collagen and PUFA in the stream of cosmetic manufacturing, as I said, and knowledge of impurities, and then the application of good manufacturing practice that we'll see in the second part of my speech. Well, the topics about cosmetic regulation. This is the base for understanding, well, what I will say you later. The main frame of regulation, the post-market survey, roles and functions, requirements, how, first step for the adoption, a key issue, there are key issues, and some of them are concerning the product information file, the cosmetic product safety report, and the importance of toxicological data. And it's important for who is interested to know more about cosmetics regulation, how to apply, in this case, the specific case of A coefficient, but it's in general way how the cosmetic regulation works. The most important part is to understand what is the logic, what is the frame of the world regulation, and then to be familiar with a little bit with some definition and some documents. There are key documents and key steps of the world regulation. And then we start with, and then of course the manufacturing practice. Well, we start with the main elements because the cosmetic regulation is not hard, it's not complicated. This is in terms of concept. It is required a lot of attention on details by the point of view of experts in charge, because there's plenty of gray areas, there's plenty of tricks or traps in which we can fall in some way. I will give you examples and clarifications. Overview. What to do, how. Then another important part that to consider from the beginning is the export. Export is important, even if we're thinking about sustainability of process and regulation and compliance of cosmetics, because in the global market in which we are, there is no sense to think about ingredients that and the regulation that is adapted for a specific country and not for the international market, because at the international level, we are witnessing a process of harmonization between the different countries for each other. They are getting step by step to be aligned to the same model for regulation. This is good for you to know that what I'm getting to say now and to tell you and to describe, it's something adopted not only in Europe, but in the biggest part of the world. The biggest country that adopted regulation is very deeply inspired by European one, is the United States, with the last year, at the end of December 2023, the new regulation was adopted and was enforced, were a kind of revolution, and they moved in a while with a regulation that is very close to the European one. This is just for you to know. How to assess cosmetics. Let's start from the beginning. The goal is to guarantee that the products are safe. The aim of the regulation in cosmetics, as well as for the many other products, is concerning their safety. This is the goal of regulation: safe for the customer. The starting point is, how can I guarantee, how can I create a rule for the safety of the products in case of cosmetics? Well, there are mainly two ways and two styles and two different approaches. One is the pre-market approval, and the second is post-market control. There are two different philosophies. In a few words, pre-market approval, it is a kind of a process like it's today for pharmaceutical products, for drugs or medicines. Pre-market approval means that there is some entity, and usually the Ministry of Health or some similar structure in the country, that takes some standardized kind of information, drug master file, for example, in pharmaceutical. They check deeply. They usually ask somewhere where the individual authority can individuate some weak points, and they can ask for some more information, some more details, some more data, implementing clinical trial and so on. At the end of the process, it is in case of drugs in Europe, as well as in the United States and many other countries, it is a long process, taking a lot of time, different steps. After what, it is given an approval. an official approval from the competent authorities. This kind of approach is probably perfect for pharmaceutical products. It is not what is applied in the cosmetics. Cosmetics, the approach is a post-market control. It means that, as I told you, the pre-market approval concerns a governative lapse or license and authorization, while the post-market control concerns that the criteria are established, obligations are established, responsibility added to the companies, and post-market survey means that, well, the first approach is a little bit scaring to know that cosmetics are placed in the market without any official authorization from the authorities. Then the first sight, this approach seems to be very weak, and then the first impression or first idea after that is then I don't use anymore my shampoo because it's not controlled, it's dangerous. Well, it's true the opposite, because just for you to know, the pre-market approval was the kind of old-fashioned approach. And then year after year, the few countries that they still of that kind of approach. They are moving towards a post-market control. It's important to consider that this is not because the pre-market approval is expensive. It is not a matter of budget, even if, of course, the pre-market approval, as you can easily imagine, has a huge impact in terms of cost, because I had to put in charge experts into the governative offices and ministries of health, and then all them, they have a huge responsibility because they must go in details, deeply in details, of any products, and then if their examination, if their investigations are too rigid, they could create an obstacle and a damage in the market, useless. Or if their control is too weak, they could approve the products in the market that in truth they are dangerous. Well, there's a huge responsibility, a lot of work to do. Yes, it's expensive, but this is not the real problem. And the reason why all the countries are moving towards post-market control. United States, one of the countries, the biggest countries in which the pre-market approval was applied was China, and they are slowly moving towards the post-market control. Why I'm not scared to use the shampoo or my skincare or my toothpaste, even if it is not approved by Ministry of Health. The reason is that consider that the cosmetics, the difference between cosmetics and pharmaceutical products is that there are many differences, of course. One is the aim. The pharmaceutical products, they are intended to heal or to therapeutic or any other similar function. And they have to interact strongly with my body, with the physiology, with side effects, and they are unavoidable. And then the pharmaceutical products have just to balance the advantages versus the side effect, what I don't have in cosmetics. The nature of cosmetics is completely different because the composition, the substance they are into the composition, they are not intended to interact so strongly with my body because their function is different. But this is not the only reason. The main difference is that consider that in Europe every day, an average of 800 new products are registered in the cosmetic database. 800 new products every day. The number of items in the market is unbelievable. While for new pharmaceutical products, the timing from the idea to get in the market is kind of about no less than 6 or 7 to 8 to 10 years. In cosmetics, the turnover, so the average length of the life of cosmetics is 2 years in the market. So it's the average. Basically, most of cosmetics every year they are renewed, or something new ingredients is added, or something is changed, or some function is added, or some function is changed. Basically every year. So the number of items is unbelievably incredible. It's almost impossible, or better, it's not impossible a pre-market approval. The problem is that how can I go in deep evaluation if I'm from the side of the Ministry of Health? I have to move into a realistic way. So if I have to check and approve, I cannot block the companies. I cannot block the business, the market, and the turnover. Then in some way I have to check and to approve, and that sounds not reasonable. But there is another, still more important issue that is concerning the responsibility versus the knowledge about the product. In cosmetics, there are hundreds different categories, thousands different ingredients. Every year there are new ingredients from natural source or from research. There are huge investments from company in new ingredients in cosmetics. And then what about the knowledge that competent authorities must have? Because their role should be to check and approve or to reject. At the end of the day, the skillness, the best knowledge on the specific products, even in terms of criticality, is on the shoulder of the company. So the company with their R&D lab, with their regulatory and safety assessor, they know all the details much more than the safety assessor from Ministry of Health can imagine. So for all those reasons, the best way is to give clear criteria, to give very, very rigid criteria by scientific point of view, and then to ask is joking. It's an obligation. The secret for well-working regulation, even if the authority they don't control before to place in the market, is the penalty. So the companies are strongly encouraged to be compliant with the rule, because if they don't, because of post-market control, the consequences and then trouble and penalties are very, very bad. The risks are very high for the company. Consider that most of irregularities can be found, even if they are not properly dangerous, but just a slight potential danger or missing information, they are giving the company a trial into the criminal court. So, this is the good balance. If I'm the competent authority, I'm the Minister of Health, instead of being in charge to check what is wrong, and this is up to me, in pre-market approval, it's up to the competent authorities to find the problem. The goal of the company is not to clarify and to go deeper and to share the details about the potential problem. Their goal is to have the permission. While in the post-market control, I'm the company. I am responsible. If in the future there will be any side effect in my products, any undesirable effect, and the competent authorities, they can come to me and they ask me, well, show me, how did you assess the products? There is something that you didn't control very well. There is something that you missed. There is an impurity that you didn't consider. And now there is a problem for a customer. And then this is the problem. You see, the balance of the responsibility of the action in the pre-market versus post-market is completely different. Then, after we clarified all the process, all the obligations, all the control, we can feel absolutely more safe than we expect, because the consequences for the companies if they do something wrong are so bad, and the risks are so high and so strong that only a crazy company can take the decision to take any minimum risk. This is the frame. So, well, you can start to focus and to imagine what is the consequences, what is the behavior. And this is the reason why in a project like Ecoefficient is so important to be aware about all the steps, all the products, all the steps, all the purification, all the specification, because it's all up to the hardware, is up to the company to know everything. The authorities is not involved, even after the product is in the market. The competent authority will be involved only after. And then everything else will be made at the best of our knowledge before. And then we must have a huge and very well-made documentation to show, in case of request by the authorities, to show how the process was made. Because look, the authorities, they don't proceed only in case of an undesirable effect. They proceed for doing controls in the market, preventive controls. So they pick a company from the list. They say day by day, they take a couple of them and know all the European territories, and they just ask, they knock the door of the company and say, well, these are the obligations, then let's check what you did by scientific point of view. With all the data that I cannot go in details, of course, but just to give you an overview, an idea how it works. Well, why? This is I know quite well the topic, so I speak in advance. It's inspiring most of the world in the United States just a few months ago. It's a very efficient model, and then we can feel safe using the cosmetics in Europe. Criteria, obligations, laws and guidelines, documentation. Well, they are very important. They are the pillar of the safety and the pillar of the regulation. Because if I want companies, they follow all the criteria, they follow all the guidelines. I must write well them. I must give a detailed law and give details guidelines. Then I can expect the compliance in the market. Basics. Well, as I already told, no registration approval, post-market control, responsibility given to the company. This is a very important issue to consider. The composition is almost free. Well, it means that if I want to create a new cosmetic, I can include in the cosmetics almost any ingredient, any component I want, almost. There are limitations. There are annexes, so-called annexes, in which there are lists of specific ingredients, and then we'll see. The annexes gave as a limitation. Manufacturing must be under cosmetic good manufacturing practice that is ruled by an ISO standard. It is a very, very well-known international standard 22716. Labeling with compulsory information on that. Look, very important to clarify. The reason why I have to put the information in labeling is not because the consumer can understand what is the meaning of benzyl alcohol or cetyl alcohol or ethylhexyl glycerin. The reason why, or if you want to know more about ingredients, look at just all the bullshits that are in the web. It's 99% of the news on the web about a hypothetic dangerous ingredients in cosmetics are fake, 100% fake. But if you want to know more, you must be able to just select the scientific literature, peer-reviewed scientific literature, and then understand that. The reason why in labeling there are information about ingredients is that if there are persons are sensitive to specific ingredients, they must avoid because there are individual sensitivity, and the doctors, they give them, they just remind, look, if you see these ingredients, don't use that cosmetic because you are allergic on that. That's all. But there are obligations. Documented control, the main part of that is added to the company who who is responsible is the company that places the product in the market. So the company is mentioned in labeling as the owner of the products, and then they are selling the products. They are responsible for everything. Of course, it's important for projects like Ecoefficient that is just getting the goal is to produce from waste the high value raw material for cosmetics. Of course, they must be fully compliant to everything because, as I told you, it's not a matter of the Ministry of Health can approve that raw material. It is the companies. The companies, they can introduce. They want to introduce the ingredients. They must accept the ingredients under their responsibility. So this is the reason why it's so important that all the ingredients for cosmetics we come from Ecoefficient. They must be supplied with all the proper documentation, all the proper information, all the details about toxicological point of view, impurities point of view, and good manufacturing practice, manufacturing chain. The company is headed to do a very, very articulated scientific act. It's called safety assessment. And all that has to be documented in details with the very, very well-known product information file. And then you can easily find, and at the end of the presentation, I give you the slides. You can, but even you don't need that link. You just it's enough to go into Google or any other search engine and then look for the European regulation. This is the front page of the regulation. Well, the definition of cosmetics, and is clarified, of course, or how to identify a cosmetic. For the area of application is the external part of the body. The only inner part of the body that is allowed for cosmetics is the oral cavity. Of course, toothpaste and any other products I can use for hygiene of oral cavity are allowed only. Any other cavity in inner part of nose or ears or the internal genital are not cosmetics. The other requirement, the one is the area of application. The other requirement is the function. Well, exclusively or mainly to clean, perfume, changing appearance, correcting body odor, protecting them, or keeping in good condition. And those are cosmetics. Safety is a key issue. Cosmetics, and this is the focus of the regulation, must be safe for as used under normal or reasonably foreseeable condition of use, taking in account the presentation, the labeling, the instruction, and any other indication. What is the meaning of reasonable foreseeable? If I put in the market a shampoo that can be extremely harmful if it gets in touch with ice, it's not safe, because it's reasonably foreseeable that a shampoo, when I clean my hair, when I'm doing the shower, it's dropping to my eyes. And then it's acceptable if there is uncomfortable, if it just give him just some bad feeling, just a slight redness that has to be solved alone in a few minutes, that's acceptable, nothing more than that. And then when I check, I assess the safety of cosmetics, I have to think about all the foreseeable use, given all the issues listed here. Responsible person, as I told, is the main actor of the regulation. This is interesting to know, because this is a significant difference between cosmetics and the food, for example, or many other categories of products. In cosmetics, the company that appears on the labeling, on the packaging, so the owner of the products, is the responsible for everything. So If the product is manufactured by a third party, by a contract manufacturer, it doesn't matter. It is the responsible person, is a legal person, so a company. The company that places the product in the market has to check if the manufacturer is working well, is safe or not, and as well if the ingredients are compliant, are safe or not. And I repeat why this is the reason why it's so important for Ecoefficient to provide a deep and wide and well-structured set of documents, set of data, because otherwise, if there is any doubt about potential impurity or something is not clear, that will basically be a huge problem, and then will, in many cases, give an obstacle for placing my ingredients in the market. Oh, well, and of course, the responsible person should ensure compliance with the relevant obligation. This approach, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why the regulation in cosmetics is so efficient, is so well working, and then every year there are new countries that are getting to adopt officially the European regulation or copy and paste. In Switzerland, is a regulation is copy and paste, and then almost copy and paste in Turkey, in Israel, in the Middle East, in South Asia, Southeast, many countries. It works well because if there is an impurity in my packaging, for example, if there is any byproducts can permeate, can migrate from the plastic container into the inner cosmetics, and they can say to the competent authorities, I'm sorry, but it was the packaging manufacturer fault. And they, what I can say is that the packaging manufacturer can say, well, so I have no idea that you bought my bottle. I have no idea it was for cosmetics. In this case, there is a possibility just to try to give the responsibility each other, and this is getting confusion. Cosmetics is clear. There is one company on the label. This is responsible. If there is any doubt, the responsible person must stop everything and say, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about your packaging. I'm not sure about impurity, because I will be responsible for that. I will be very rigid on this, because in the future, I will have to give the proof of the safety to the competent authorities, and as well as ingredients. So what about your collagen? Oh, this is good. This is very nice. It's from converting waste for the environment. Whoa, good. What about impurities? We have to give full data, and then we must reassure the companies that they cannot use the ingredients, because it's absolutely nice that they are from waste, converting waste into the high-value ingredient. But if the companies will not show 100% about purity, about good manufacturing practice, they will never adopt it for the responsibility. And then imported products, the same. So, of course, because even in case of imported products, there should be a responsible person that it is clearly written in the regulation. Every single chapter, Article 3, safety, had it to responsible person. Had Article 8, good manufacturing practice, a responsibility of the responsible person. Documentation, safety, labeling, cosmetic survey, control and management of the undesirable effect. Everything is added to the responsible person. And then the good manufacturing practice is an article of the law, and then the products must be produced under good manufacturing practice, and of course, again, the raw materials as well. The Article 8, we see in the second part of my session in details, are described in an harmonized standard, because in the regulation is written that compliance should be guaranteed in case the relevant harmonized standard is applied. And then there is the question is, do we have an harmonized standard? Yes, of course we have it. It's the ISO 22796. And then this is the publication in the 2011 where the Commission established and published that in the official journal of the European Union that the ISO 22716 is the harmonized standard. What it means that if it's harmonized, means that if I comply with this, I comply with all, and then it is basically compulsory. Another very important part is the safety assessment and product information file that I already mentioned. Then Article 10, the company, so the responsible person must guarantee that a safety assessment is made based on a cosmetic product safety report. That is the big, and this is described in the Annex 1. I will not go in details, it's too long, but just for you to know, is a huge report with all the toxicological data and descriptions of the profile of ingredients and all the data inside, with a lot of literature. Consider that usually a cosmetic product safety report is a matter of 100 pages, several hundred pages. We have to consider all the literature for all the ingredients, all the impurity I can expect. And then the cosmetic product safety report is the main part of the product information file that has to be immediately available in case of request by the competent authorities. And this is the product information file in which I find a description of the cosmetic product, the cosmetic product safety report, a description of the manufacturing method, and the statement of compliance with good manufacturing practice. And then, in case of the product I claim a special effect, I must to demonstrate. I have to attach the proof of the effect. Either we speak about anti-wrinkle or anti-aging or against spots or dyschromia. Any function is claimed must be demonstrated and must be justified and documented into the product information file. That on animal testing means declaration of non-animal testing, because you know that in cosmetics, animal testing are no more allowed on the final products and from ingredients. This is the structure of the PEF. Cosmetic product safety report is in two parts. Part A, data. Part B, the safety assessment. The real safety assessment is the part B of the cosmetic product safety report. And then other significant article is notification. So as I just quickly mentioned, there is a portal, so-called CPNP, Cosmetic Product Notification Portal, in which every responsible person must to register the products with all details about them, composition, the picture of the products with the labeling, and the competent authorities, they have the full access to that. So for the survey on the market, so they can check every day which new products are registered, who registered the products, where is country of origin, in which member state it is registered, and then what they can choose to check if they see anything they don't like, they can proceed, because they have a tool for just a supervision what is has been placed in the market. And then prescriptions for substances listed in the annexes. Well, it's almost 2:30. Before to proceed, I will suggest you have just 5 minutes of break. Just I need to drink some water, and then I think you need to have some coffee or some sugar. So I would like to thank you for being in contact with me now. But I will be still connected. I just turn off the camera and microphone for kind of 5 minutes, and something more than 5 minutes, I will just switch on the camera and microphone, and will continue my presentation. Welcome back after the break. Now we continue our trip in the world of the cosmetic regulation and requirements. And then when we are just coming to a very, very interesting part about the restriction of substances. As I told you in the first part, in the cosmetic field, because the responsibility for the safety of the products is handed to the company and to the safety assessor, I'm almost free to introduce any ingredients I want, except that I have to fully demonstrate the safety of the ingredients. So it's very important that as a most common is ingredient is better, is more easy to demonstrate because I'm plenty of data from the literature, from the experience, from the historical data, as a much more novel as an ingredient that's much difficult, and then I must put investments. That there are restrictions. So I told you that I'm almost free to put anything, almost, because there are restrictions. Cosmetic products shall not contain any of the substances listed in Annex 2. Substances listed in Annex 3 beyond the limits and the conditions. So the Annex 2 is the list of forbidden substances. The Annex 3 is called the list of regulated, so limited substances. So there are a long list of the ingredients that are allowed up to 1%, 0.1%, or only for specific category. There are ingredients are allowed for skincare, but not for oral care or area around eyes or for children and so on. And then Annex 4, 5, and 6, color agent, preservatives, and UV filters. I'm not free to choose the color I want. I'm not free to select preservative or UV filters. If I do any of this, I will be invited to the clinical court, as well as for Annex 2, forbidden substances, or Annex 3 outside the limits. The presence of traces, of course, well, Annex 2 means the substance, forbidden substances cannot be intentionally added. They are accepted in case of they are impurities, or the conditions that they must be safe and unavoidable. If there is any impurity I can avoid, I must avoid. If I find it, it is not allowed. Labeling, as I told you in advance, there is the list of information I must have and must show in my products. So the name and address of responsible person, the contact, the durability, the warnings, the batch number, the function of the products, unless it's clear from the presentation what it means. A lipstick. You never see a lipstick with written, this is a lipstick, because it's clear from the shape, as well as the perfume, eau de toilette. It's written on, but it's just to identify eau de toilette to eau de parfum to other category, because the different quality, the different of content of the perfuming agent, but it's not for their use, because it's clear from the shape, from the bottle, from the box, that is something that is for perfume. If it's not clear, like a plastic tube with a creamy substance inside as well, it can be anything. It can be a bath foam, maybe a toothpaste, maybe a shampoo. In this case, must be written. The list of ingredients, and then I told you the reason of the list of ingredients for the individual sensitivity. And then this is a picture that describes the EU frame, because the cosmetic product safety report is linked to the activity of the responsible person that plays a central role, then guarantees that the products are produced under good manufacturing practice and placed in the market on which the products are controlled, because there is a cosmetic surveying act that is supervised by the EU, that means European Commission, and the competent authority. So there is this is the right way to imagine the regulation in cosmetics. So there are many parts interconnected each other. And then the regulation, and then as this is just a slide, just framing what I already said about the diffusion. And now we are getting to proceed into the good manufacturing practice. This is the second part. It's very important and has a huge impact on the whole eco-efficient project. Well, first of all, ISO 22716. To understand well the meaning, how to put in place, it's important to know ISO family. If you are familiar with ISO 9000, is the most well-known, or ISO-like, you know what I mean, so standardized kind of documentation described in requirements. What's important to know is that the ISO 22716 is giving me requirements. There's not saying how do I have to put the pipe into the kettle, how much big is the kettle, how much wide has to be the room. Everything has to be evaluated by the company and then has to be adapted to the goal. The standard is a list of the goal I have to reach to be compliant. And then, of course, as any other, ISO can be verified by a notified body. Well, for who is expert on ISO, consider that ISO 22716 is not officially classified as a standard, but it is a guideline. So it is formally not certified by a certain notification body, but can be recognized. Most of companies, most manufacturers are certified ISO 9000, and this is a real standard, can be certified with the addition of ISO 22716. It is an additional recognizing action from the notified body. But it doesn't matter because the structure is similar to the ISO 9000, so there are many parts in common. The main principles are self-control, documented quality systems. So I cannot introduce who is not familiar with, but I warmly suggest anybody to be more familiar with ISO, because it is something that often are not well introduced in the training course in the universities, but it's very important to be familiar with the ISO because they are applied in several fields, and then cosmetics is one of them. Well, basically, I must do what is written, I might write what is done. So under control in a system that is self-controlling, and the difference between ISO 22716 and the 9000 is that it is specific for cosmetic field. And then the list of requirements are focused on what is critical for cosmetics and what to do. Well, this is the structure of the ISO with an introduction. What is good for ISO family is that all of them, they have the same structure. So that's it's more easy to, if you know one of them, it's more easy to easily understand the meaning of any other, because they have more or less the same structure. Introduction, scope, terms and definition are in common with any other ISO, while in this case, the main chapters are dealing with the personnel, premises, equipment, raw materials and packaging materials, production, finished products, quality control laboratory, treatment of products that is out of specification, waste, subcontracting, deviation, complaints and recall, change control, internal audit and documentation. Just for who is not familiar with the self-control is from an internal team that control the system itself. And then, of course, any deviation of any non-compliance have to be managed. In practice, in the real life, what are the most important activities dealing with the cosmetic manufacturers? First of all, the layout, because the layout of the factory, of the plant, can have a huge impact into the efficiency for preventing the contamination, cross-contamination, microbiological contamination. Of course, logistic organization is important as well, because the layout is the physical structure, the logistic is the flow of the goods inside, between the raw material to the production and towards the final product. Hygienic criteria are key issue, of course. They are not so detailed in the ISO, because their importance and how they have managed, they depend by the profile of the cosmetics. There are cosmetics for their nature, for the high amount of water, the composition, they are prone to be easily contaminated, while there are cosmetics that are very hard to contaminate. In any case, I have to be to work in a clean area. I have to clean all the part of the plant, but the attention, the control, and the hygienic level has to be well set up on the real need. It depends by the criticality of the microbiological issue. I must avoid cross-contamination in any case, because it doesn't matter if I'm playing with the substance. They are not dangerous, they are not harmed by themselves. Cross-contamination can change the composition, can bring the small amount of substances is not predicted, and then the effect can have, it is unpredictable. And then I cannot lose the control on the process, even about the cross-contamination. And then everything has to be well documented, of course. Certification is not compulsory. So, of course, it's very good if I manage a manufacturing plant, as I have to apply the ISO 22716 by law. It's smart, it's good to have a notified body can come and to give us a kind of certification that demonstrates that the ISO is applied. And then, well, in a broader site, the good manufacturing practice is the application of the concept of validation and documented control. What we mean with validation, and then there are elements to consider beyond the certification. So it is not only a matter of reaching out a diploma from a notified body. The good manufacturing practice concerned to have a structure, to have a training, and to apply some logic and some special way to organize the workflow. That has to be demonstrated, has to be documented, and has to be verified by the notified body, if you want. But by law, we must to comply with this ISO and not to be certified. There is an hidden link between good manufacturing practice and the cosmetic product safety report, because, well, we can easily imagine that in the cosmetic product safety report, I identify certain parameters are critical. The safety assessor, as I told you in the first session, has to identify any critical or potentially critical presence of impurity or parameter. Well, in the safety assessment, the picture is made by the safety assessor is concerning a specific product, is an ideal product, is representing all the products that I will produce in the real life. Well, the good manufacturing practice is the link between the theory of the theoretical products I assess and the real life in which real products are produced, and then we see how. How to assess cosmetic products made on the other side of the world. This is an interesting issue, even if it is not so crucial for the sustainability and for a coefficient, but it's something good to know, because this is an overview on cosmetics, on requirements, on regulation, and then you can wonder, what if, well, it's perfectly good, there are plenty of regulation, there are plenty of obligation, the companies, they take a huge risk if they do something wrong, and then they feel comfortable. But what about the products I can import from my side? Well, of course, they are well regulated at the same level of the products are manufactured here inside Europe. Why good manufacturing practice? Well, they give a support to the philosophy behind the regulation, because the self-certification, so I certify myself, so the company is in charge to give itself the permission to place the product in the market, taking, of course, well, they are aware of the huge amount of obligation, and they are aware about the huge amount of risk if they do something wrong. But I have to certify by myself. And the process validation and document control are key issues, are key tools, because first of all, I must to keep the control, because I must to guarantee the safety by myself. And then because in case of investigation, in case of control by the competent authorities, I must be able to demonstrate, to easily demonstrate that I'm in compliance with the regulation. So this is the importance of that. The process validation, well, a validated process is a process in which I have to guarantee that if the process is in compliance with certain parameters, I can be sure that the final result will probably be in compliance. And then, of course, I check at the end of the chain. Well, the difference between a process with a validation versus a process without a validation is, in the first case, I have several checkpoints. I have to identify several parameters in process, so-called in-process control, so that if the parameters during the process are in compliance, I'm pretty sure that the final process will be compliant. Of course, if I'm working in the right range of pH, of temperature, of the order of addition of the ingredients, or the presence of impurities from, for example, a raw material like collagen. Well, if everything is okay in this, within fitting the specification, if the process is validated, it means that I can expect the final product will be valid, will be in compliance. This doesn't mean that I can skip the final control. Well, the reason why I do the control is to increase the safety, to prevent mistakes, because I can do mistakes in every step. So if I do a mistake in a control during the process, maybe there is something wrong, it seems it's okay, and then I give the approval to proceed. If there is the final control at the end of the chain, that the mistake will be individuated, as well as the opposite. So maybe that the in-process control is okay, and then it's okay, but there is something wrong at the end, and then in the last step, I can check if there is something wrong. This is the way to increase the reliability of the whole process. But what is important to remind is that all the structure of all the frame is based on process, knowledge, and responsibility. And for that, all the parameters they play a very important role, because we must remember that all the parameters are in my hands, all the responsibilities in the hands of the company. So the source of data from the raw material and supply manufacturer are absolutely important. They are key issue. Or otherwise, I will not hope to place the product or the raw material in the market. Of course, the goals are risk reduction and they demonstrate my compliance to the competent authorities. Well, this is the definition. When the result of a process cannot be fully verified, the process should be validated within a degree of assurance and approved according to the established procedures. In the case of cosmetics, in most cases, we do a validated process and then a final test, even if it's possible to do the final test. The good manufacturing practice requires that an ongoing process and in-process control are made. This definition is from the FDA and then even from Global Harmonization Task Force. And then you can find a definition of validation in another ISO that is 13485 for medical devices and quality management system. Well, for the term good manufacturing practice, so-called GMP, is from pharmaceutical and food safety from documented control in a quality system. And history, you can find this very, very interesting publication, Global Regulatory Issues for Cosmetics Industry. And what is funny is that if we read accurately the regulation, we then not find the definition. It's funny. We not find a definition because the good manufacturing practice is a broad concept. So instead of the definition in the regulation is written, Article 8, the products must be manufactured under good manufacturing practice if you comply harmonized regulation, you are in compliance. And then it's a shortcut instead of just trying to create a definition. Or probably there was some problem at political level, but it doesn't matter. The result is pretty good. We can just follow the ISO 22716 and feel safe, because if you are in compliance with that, you are in compliance with the regulation. Article 8, this is so the screenshot from the regulation, as we told. Harmonized. And this is a slide, the same slide, the first session, in which it was officialized that ISO 22716 is the harmonized one. It is not just a certificate. This is a common misunderstanding, more common than expected. There are companies in which they don't care so much about the philosophy, about the approach. They just set up a quality system. They call a notified body. They ask them to give a certification, and then it seems that's all. This is not true. This is not the right way. There is a smarter way towards the compliance. Another common mistake is the checklist approach. Responsible person, it's me. It's okay. Product information file. There's I involved someone like a consultant that I paid for that. I did it. They gave me, and I put in I dropped my product information file in my desk, and then it's done. Well, what about GMP? Oh, yes, it's a compulsory. Then I set up a system, and then I involve a notified body, I pay them, they come here, they give me the diploma, and it's done. Well, this is not the compliance. This is the truth. What is the expectation from the authority, from the competent authority, from the European Commission, is that the product information file, the state assessment, is a picture. And the picture is for the safety assessment, so the safety assessor being able to say yes. Because remember that there is no pre-market approval. The approval is from the safety assessor in the company. So the safety assessor is in charge for playing the role of green light or red light. Then their green light or red light is based on a picture of a product. And the picture is based on several elements, among them the specifications. And this is just to describe, in my lab, I identify the product, I identify the specification. In lab scale, I say that it's okay as safety assessor. The good manufacturing practice are the tool that guarantees that each batch is represented by the picture. Because if there is something different, if there is something is not under control, if in lab scale I can control very well the impurity, I can control very well the degradation, the temperature, the pH, I must do the same in good manufacturing practice in the plant, in the bigger scale. Otherwise, I have a picture by one side, and the products are different than the picture, then they are no more representative. Then the good manufacturing practice, they play a role in the scaling up from the lab to the plant. They must share ranges, parameters, level of impurities, and this is the reason why at the very beginning of the project, myself and my team, we started immediately to say, wow, look, what is the potential impurity, what the amount, what is blah, blah, blah. This is the reason, because if you are not able to identify properly the impurities or the specification on the lab scale, in the small scale, that is the base to set up in the bigger scale the same specification, and then to guarantee the compliance not only for the products, the picture that I gave in the ideal conditions, but in the real life. And then good manufacturing practice is a tool, is an obligation, but it is a tool. And then again, remember that good manufacturing practice is in some way linked to all the mechanisms. The meaning of this picture is that there is any elements is moving, influencing each all other. So there are parameters. If the parameters in the safety report that I identified in lab scale, if they are not represented into the GMP, I have to part of the mechanism, they are moving independently each other, and then it doesn't work anymore. But the meaning of this picture is that if I find that at the level of the cosmetic product safety report, if I individuate any parameter that can be critical, and then the safety assessor can give a warning. So be careful that a certain kind of impurity during the process must be below such level. This is a mechanism in which both safety report with the loop or with a responsible person must be able to influence the part concerning the production. If the production is made under good manufacturing practice, that's very good, because the production plant will receive all the indication, and they will apply the indication in all the batches of the final products. And then for this reason, the mechanism will work well, and there will be a connection and an influence between all the parts. And then this is the meaning of the good manufacturing practice. Beyond the certification, this certification, I mean the diploma. This is the list of the chapters we have already seen. And then certification is welcome, is not the goal. The goal is the function, is the application. Certification, of course, is a very good part. So if as by law, I have to be compliant with the regulation, I have to be compliant with good manufacturing practice, I have to put in place all the attention, all the training, all the documentation. That sounds smart to do the next missing step, to involve a notified body, and then to do an audit with them, and then at the end of the process to be officially certified. But it's not the goal. It is not what I need. It's not compulsory. It is neither useless nor essential. It is useful, simply. but the certification, the diploma cannot replace the right approach must have. Limitations, there are limitations I must be careful about, because to comply the ISO 22716 only, and then the checklist wise approach I mentioned before is far from being the best, because first of all, the ISO 22716 was written in 2007, many years ago, and 2 years before the regulation as it is in force today was published. So there are many parts of the regulation, like what about responsible person, what about safety assessment, what about product information provided, are not mentioned. So in the application of the good manufacturing practice, we must be extremely careful, because this is the reason why I told you, don't think the right approach is the checklist, because if I ask a notified body to come in my plant and to certify ISO 22716, remember that they will not care if I have the safety assessment or not, the product information file or not, if there is an interaction or not. What is funny is that, I try to come back here. The connection between cosmetic product safety report, good manufacturing practice, market, compliance, and so on, is not represented in the ISO 22716, because all this mechanism, or all this articulated mechanism, was introduced 2 years after the ISO. So in the ISO, the part concerning CPSR is not mentioned. The part concerning safety assessment, the part concerning responsible person, they play a very important, crucial role in the whole mechanism. They are not mentioned in the ISO. What this means? It means that I have to go beyond. So, and I have to avoid the approach that is checklist wise, because if I do this, I will invest time, invest money, I will set up a quality system, I can involve a notified body, I pay the notified body, I receive the diploma, but for them everything is okay, for me everything is okay. In truth, I'm not complying the law, because there are parts are missing. And then we must be extremely careful about this. The limitation is written in 2007 with no mention about responsible person, safety assessment, and product information file. Is that a huge problem? No, absolutely no. But I must be aware that all the part concerning the influence between the safety assessment and the procedure and the manufacturer are not required by the ISO. They are required by regulation. So I must take the frame from ISO 22716 and work on it and add elements that are missing, because the ISO and the regulation, they were not written in the same time. The first was written 2 years before. Example, there is a out of specification, means that I'm getting to produce a batch of shampoo, and this is out of specification. It happens. It is low viscosity. It happens because for something, sometimes there is something unpredictable can happen. And then there is a solution. Under ISO, it's easy to manage, it's easy to handle. I have a quality department, I involve the lab, they check what to do, they take the decision, say, look, increase the thickener, and that's okay. This is okay for ISO. If the notified body is coming and in my procedure, they find, well, in case of auto specification, what to do? I involve the lab, I involve the production, I can change a little bit the formula for the specific batch, and that's all. For the notified body, this is perfect. The problem is that I'm not I'm no more in compliance with the regulation, because if I change anything, I must to involve the safety assessor for giving the approval. Even with a small change in the composition, it is a different composition. And the safety assessor must take in hands and say yes or not. The problem is that this is not written. If I do not do this, I'm out of regulation. So it is useful, but we must put patches in my procedure for reaching out the compliance. And this is the common mistake is the cosmetic product safety report in the bubble. So I do the cosmetic product safety report with that specification. In the part concerning the manufacturing plant, I check the raw material specification. I agree the parameters, the maximum impurity levels with the supplier only, and the two parts are in the two bubbles, and they don't interact each other. Maybe my manufacturing plant is under good manufacturing practice, is certified with the diploma, with the Nobel Prize, but I'm not in compliance. This is okay, but I'm not in compliance. This is another example, as the same example I already gave you. Low viscosity, and then it's okay, but if I introduce even a small amount of thickener, so a small amount of substance that is not included in the original instruction, this is a new composition. You can wonder, what if just a small amount of thickener, what will be the problem? The problem is that who is in charge for give the approval? Who has the skills to say, yes, it is only 0.1% of one ingredient more? Is this okay or not? The problem is that only one person can say this, and this is a safety sponsor. If it is not included in my procedure, I'm out of law. And this is the patch I need, basically. Almost finished. So there is a room for the questions. In practice, set up in real life, I must consider in a real life manufacturing chain if I'm an importer or a brand owner. Maybe there is a responsible person in charge by foreign company. Then the responsible person has to manage the document control in all those different scenarios. And then the responsible person, if it is located in Europe or in a single country inside Europe, there must be a connection, but maybe that I can import the products from any country in the world. In any case, the responsible person, that is the entity that is with a name on the products, plays a central role between the production, analytical strategy, and certification quality systems. And in case there are different scenarios, in case the responsible person owns the facilities, then we have to consider the situation in case we will put in the market new raw materials. We can be facing a responsible person that owns the facility, so they are responsible person and the manufacturer themselves, or external manufacturers with private labels, for example, or the foreign manufacturers. So brand owners can involve manufacturers from outside Europe. There are three completely different scenarios, three completely different strategy for reaching out compliance to the same regulation. In case the manufacturer, they own their facilities, they can check everything by themselves. But consider that the most common scenario we find in cosmetics is the second, a little bit the third. So most of the companies, they they involve external manufacturer for one part or sometimes for all the manufacturing they do. And then for this reason, this is an additional element can give a little bit of complication, because the first example in which the responsible person owns facilities has everything under control, while in the second case, less control because it is an external manufacturer. In the third case, it's worse because the manufacturer is very far, thousands of kilometers, and so on. So, good manufacturing practice. There are two possible approaches. One is shortcuts with a checklist, and then I don't care about interaction, or articulate a solution with analytical strategy, certification, quality system, and audits. And this is the winning strategy for reaching out the compliance. New perspectives, just a few minutes to be on, because there is an evolution of the concept. Consider that the last wave is the standard IFS HPC. It's not by law, but it is more and more requested by big manufacturing chain, supply chain for the big distributions. And then this is an upper level standard, just for just a few slides. So it is a kind of a most powerful ISO in which it has been introduced, the risk analysis as a part of quality management system, that it is included in medical device, but it is not included in the cosmetics, not yet, and being in the future. But the IFS HPC is already requiring this issue, and then this is the upper standard. Maybe that if you will be working in the field of cosmetics in the future, will be about this upper level standard. And then this is the risk analysis that I hope will be introduced. And the features are that it's wider, deeper, more challenging, higher reliability. It is required for the big markets and the big businesses. Well, conclusions. As is seen from this very, very quick introduction to the regulation, it is usually different than what you expect in cosmetics. There are many things and many issues to consider, and then scientific and experienced supervision is required. But this is the reason why we give so much effort to supervise and guarantee the compliance, because as you have seen, even for this, just the beginning into the matter, you can perceive easily how much important is this part concerning the safety of the customer, of the users. At the end of the day, it is mirroring the safety for the business itself, of course. And then we will take care about this. I'm happy you are interested to projects like Ecoefficient. It is a very, very nice chance to enter into this wonderful world of implementing sustainability in the process for converting, in this case, waste, a huge amount of waste, in something that is precious, is valuable, and then with reducing significantly the impact into the environment in a safe way, and then giving a new perspective or new ingredients coming from a greener world and environment in which we hope to live in the future. Thank you so much for your attention, and then now I give you the floor for any questions. Thank you so much.
Ok, scusate, ho fatto partire la registrazione, prego.
Okay, so right now the European legislation of food safety is much simpler than it was up to 2006, when it was spread all over a number of directives. It was there were 17 directives for the most general subjects regarding hygiene, safety, and And it was quite a mess because every directive has to be implemented by the member states through national legislation. And this has brought to a number of obstacles to the free trade within the internal market. That's why in 2020, the president of the European Commission at that time was Romano Prodi, launched a white book for food safety, where it was provided to reform the structure of the European legislation, with a main focus on food safety as a prerequisite for every activity and trading regarding food and feed. And this was because the previous regime didn't work so well when a series of food crises happened in the late 90s, crises like the mad cow disease, on dioxins on potatoes that contaminated also the animal derived food and so on. So after the white paper on food safety in year 2000, the first outcome of the white paper has been the General Food Law, Regulation EC number 17802, where all the basic principles in terms of food safety are established, and it is still to be considered as a kind of Grundgesetz, as a kind of constitution of the European food law. After the General Food Law, then the hygiene package, that was a set of regulation dealing with the main requirements on food and feed safety all over the supply chains, was published in 2004. You can skip to the next slide, Andrea. And so we now have two main regulations that are Hygiene 1 and Hygiene 2. Hygiene 1 provides us with the general framework of hygiene rules to be applied all over the food chain by every kind of operator. And it was not recently, but 3 years ago, was amended through regulation 1382 year 2021, about which we have written a few articles on our website, that is greatitalianfoodtrade.it, that is also automatically translated in 10 languages. And if you look for Hygiene 1 or look for 1382 in the search area of the website, you will find the news that were introduced in that year to the Hygiene 1 regulation. The Hygiene 1 regulation defines, as I said, the general requirements. It is a kind of a framework regulation where you can find the definitions of food hygiene, the clarification about responsibilities of each operator within the food supply chain. And you will find general and specific requirements for either the primary production and the operators following the agricultural primary productions. Whereas hygiene and the novelty introduced in 2021 focused on the importance of food safety culture. The approach of the European legislation over the years shifted from a police-based approach, where the public officials were controlling the respect of a huge series of requisites to be implemented by the operators on terribly long checklists that resulted not to be so efficient in terms of a guarantee to the food safety, up to another system that is based on the self-regulation and precisely on the self-control. So according to the modern European food law, the first responsible of food safety is the food operator. And no one better than the food operator ought to understand which are the most relevant risks that may hamper the safety of its processes and its products. And for this reason, the main resource and also the object of either of self-control and of official controls is a food safety manual called that is usually made of two parts. One is a manual of prerequisites or good manufacturing practices, good hygienic practices, or good agricultural practices, depending on the role of the single operator. And a second part that is the implementation of monitoring and prevention, control, prevention, and corrective actions related to the specific critical points that are detected through proper analysis of the fluxes of goods and all over the process, from the entry of raw materials into the establishment up to the delivery to the final consumers. Hygiene 2 is the second main regulation of the hygiene package that provides further rules that are specific for the operators who deal with food of animal origin, not also composite foods, meaning foods that are made of either unprocessed foods of vegetable origin and processed food of animal origin. Let's say a composite food, for example, is pizza, because it contains wheat flour, it contains olive oil, it contains tomatoes, but it contains also cheese that is a finished product of animal origin. So the Hygiene 2 regulation applies only to the operations that are in the food of animal origin sector, like a slaughterhouse, like meat industry, like milk industry, and so on. Then there is a third regulation that has been recently amended regarding the official controls of products of animal origin. Then we got the Killer Directive that introduced amended, that cancelled all the previous directives, and then the official controls regulation that was firstly established in this 882/2004 that was amended in 2017 by means of regulation 625. We can slip to the next directive.
Yes, Daria, I just only wanted to add one thing about what you said before. The regulation 2021-1382 also had provisions about allergens.
Right.
For business operators, so that they have to comply to specific provisions in order to avoid cross contact between allergens and adopt specific practice in order to avoid these problems within the food production, the process of food production. Sorry, and also provisions on redistribution of food, whether it may be destined to food waste, since someone before said that is working about prevention of waste. There is also prevention of food waste. And on this, the Commission published the first one in 2016, but the latest one, which is updated according to this regulation, specific guidance which supports food business operators and also competent authorities to follow and respect the provisions of the general the food hygiene regulation.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
So skip to the next slide. Then we go microbiological criteria that has also to be kept in mind. That is regulation 2073 year 2005. And the microbiological criteria regulation also helped to solve a number of issues related to the free circulation of goods within the internal market, because before that there were differences in tolerance of certain pathogen bacteria from country to another, and this problem has been at least solved on the main pathogens that are provided in this regulation with the relevant thresholds. And then lots of European Commission's guidelines followed either on the general food law as regards to food operators' responsibilities, importers' responsibilities, food safety management, and also on products of animal origins and HACCP, so hazard analysis and critical control points implementation by small and medium enterprises. Unfortunately, the HACCP system was introduced in the in year 82 or 83 in the Codex Alimentarius, and in 94 in the first hygiene directive. But still, after 30 years from its introduction in the European food law, the HACCP notion and its practical implementation is still far from being acknowledged by a wide majority of micro enterprises that are the basis of our food supply chain in the local districts, as well as the widest majority of canteens and food catering premises and so on, except for the fast food chains. And for this reason, the European Commission every 3 or 4 years publishes new guidelines where it tries to simplify the notions, but it doesn't really simplify anything. If not by clarifying that the implementation of prerequisite of hygiene prerequisites, so hygiene good practices, is the basic requirements for micro enterprises, and that simply even these enterprises, even without implementing a proper HACCP manual, ought to acknowledge which are the main risks for food safety in the specific activities, and how to control, how to prevent, and how to mitigate. That's in brief the content of the latest European Commission guidelines, despite its complexity that is not definitely not consumers nor user friendly. We can go to the next slide, please. And the objective of this set of rules is, in the first place, to ensure human and animal health with a high level of protection that is being guaranteed not just by the rules themselves, but especially by the proper enforcement, and in particular by the food safety management networks that are established either at national, at the European level, but also consumer interest protection, including good commercial practices and free circulation of goods that are theoretically the first pillar of the European Union. Theoretically, because in fact there are still some areas of the European food law where the harmonization is not properly working, to the point that free circulation is seriously hampered, for example, in the food supplement sectors, and foods for specific purposes, like food for medical purposes, or FSG. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And the operator's primary responsibilities is one of the basic notions that have to be considered by everyone, because we have to consider that every operator all over the food supply chain is responsible for guaranteeing the safety of his process and the product it deals with, or the raw materials it deals with, from point A when he receives the goods to point B when he sells the goods, or when he delivers the goods. And in order to let the official controls authorities understand and check and verify the proper implementation of food safety requirement by every operators, traceability system was traceability principle was made clear. It existed already in the hygiene directive 4393, but it was the traceability principle was made clearer in Article 18 of the General Food Law. And this principle provides that every operator must register the goods that have entered into his establishment, and so when which goods have been received from which operator, and when the final or even the same goods, in case of a simple trader, have been delivered to another operator. So there is a system which still requires, for the generality of food and feed, still requires quite intensive research activity by the official controls authorities, because they have to go to every operator in order to get their traceability registers and go back until they find the first that was responsible for lack of safety in case of a food safety crisis, as well as they have to go they have to follow the traceability registers in order to reach at least the final distributor, like the retailer who provided the goods to the final consumers. But the traceability doesn't cover also the consumer stage for obvious privacy and reasons, and also for feasibility that wouldn't exist in case we ought to register also the names of those who buy everyday food. And this is the general traceability rule provided by General Food Law Article 18. Then there are more advanced systems of traceability that are provided for specific categories of goods. That is, like is the case of bovine meats, where since year 2000, Regulation 1768, 1760 and 1875 provided a traceability system that I called a passport system, because within every stage of the supply chain, every operator working on the meat product has to keep an information regarding its operation, and this information is accompanies the product up to down to the final consumers. Okay, we can go further. There's another novelty of the hygiene package in respect to the previous discipline, that is finally and eventually the integration, the consideration of primary production as a substantial part of the supply chain, where food safety issues might arise and must therefore be considered. It looks crazy, but before the hygiene package, even the notion of hygiene started from the first phase following the primary production. Not by chance, either the dioxin and the mad cow disease crisis were originated in primary production stage. So nowadays we have a discipline that is integrated starting from the primary production, despite the hygiene requirements in the primary production are still softer, simplified by comparison to those who must be followed in the next stages of the supply chain, to the point that the HSSF is not provided in agriculture nor in breeding, despite it would be useful to have at least a proper knowledge of certain microbiological, biological, but also chemical risks that might often occur in that stage of the supply chain. Okay, you can go. And another principle that is consistent with the responsibility of all operators is the stable to table or farm to fork approach. We've been listening so many times over the last months about the farm to fork policy that was introduced by the European Commission at the beginning of the Ursula von der Leyen's activities. The farm to fork strategy actually provided a set of measures that were aimed to implement and to improve the characteristics of the food supply chains in terms of sustainable development, greening, and reduction of pesticides, and let's say hopefully also simplification of the rules. In fact, almost nothing out of that has taken place because of a strong oppositions from the conservative, but also from the socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament under the pressure of the great agricultural confederations that have been that are still even today the European Parliament pushing for the whitening of either the Green Deal and the farm to fork strategy. But apart from that, the stable to table or farm to fork approach was introduced 20 years ago, 24 years ago, as a general principle in order to highlight the need of a cooperation between among all the actors joining the food chain. And this cooperation is furthermore important when food safety crisis, of course, because in that case, the sooner you understand where the crisis originated, and the sooner you are able to withdraw the products that are risky from a public health perspective, the better it is for the community. And in order to making this possible, the hygiene package introduced the principle according to which all operators within the food chain and the feed chain must be registered at the competent authorities. Before that time, operators weren't always registered, and there was a huge variety of discipline at national levels. So in Italy, for example, there were already strict procedures for that, whereas in other countries like in England or in Ireland, it wasn't, the rules weren't so strict. And the result of this has been the impossibility to trace back and to monitor the occurrence of food safety risks in the mad cow disease and in the dioxin prices that happened before these rules were implemented. Then, as I said, there are general and specific hygiene requirements. One step back. All operators must be registered either as food producers and as feed producers, or suppliers of the feed industry. For example, many food industries produce food, but some of the sub-products or co-products or byproducts are sold to the feed industry. And in this case, they have to be registered on two different registers, one as food producers and the second as suppliers of feed raw materials. HSSF, I told you roughly what it's about, and I guess most of you know even better than me how to implement an HSSF system within a food enterprise, or also, and always keeping in mind that the most important thing is not just to implement a manual that was published by a trade association of an industry sector, but every kind of manual or ready-made document has to be adapted to the concrete, to the factual situation of the single enterprise, its processes, its products, and its risks that might vary consistently from a country to another, from size of enterprise to another, from the complexity of the organization, from the characteristics of the raw materials and of the final products, the temperatures of conservation, and so on and so on. Microbiological criteria, our best practices are in fact those aids that are supplied by trade organizations, and the European Commission has a register that is publicly available on its websites, where you can find hundreds of examples of best practices for the single phases of single supply chains and so on. Microbiological criteria have also to be considered, and as I anticipated, there is a regulation that is 2073/05 providing unique criteria for the main pathogens, whereas for the other pathogens that are not considered in that regulation, operators as well as authorities tend to apply the risk evaluation as a first method and criteria on which to base their activities, either in prevention and in corrective actions related to possible food safety crisis. And I make the example, for example, of botulinum. Botulinum is not one of the pathogens provided in the microbiological criteria regulation, but it's a killer. It's a human killer, and its tolerance is zero, according to well-established practices and scientific consensus worldwide. Temperature checks were introduced as criteria to be further developed in a new ad hoc European regulation, but this never happened in the 20 years that followed the hygiene package. Okay, skip that and see the definition of hygiene. What is hygiene? Measures and conditions that are necessary to control hazards and to ensure fitness for human consumption of a foodstuff. In this definition, you find all the principles on which the European food law is based. Measures and conditions that have to be taken into consideration by every operator within the food and also feed supply chain in order to guarantee the safety of the product. And the safety of the product in case of food means the fitness for human consumption. And in this regard, there's an article of Article 14 of the General Food Law, and also Article 2 of the Official Controls Regulation 2017-625 that make clear what is food to be considered as safe for human consumption. The food that is safe for human consumption does not hamper consumers' health either in immediate and in the medium, long term, and also considering the possible effects on the health of the descendants, meaning that, for example, genotoxicity is not compatible with genotoxicity of a food ingredient or a food additive. Is not compatible to the food safety. Despite this, there's still quite a lot of controversy around the food safety evaluation of regarding certain food additives in particular. If you look at at our website, greatitalianfoodtrade.it, for example, you can see last week we published a recent article about silly dioxide that is probably carcinogenic and mutagen, as well as emulsifiers have been recently object of rather critical food safety evaluation by the ANSES, by the French Agency for Food Safety. And this explains to us how uneasy it is to shift from general principle to its proper implementation on the general market, and the complexity of the procedures that are never enough ready to intervene on food safety issues that are at stake, even in the case, for example, of preservatives that are used in the meat preparations and in the meat-based products, like, for example, the sulfites, but also other preservatives that are still not the sulfites, nitrates, that are still a problem also according to European Food Safety Authority, because of a high level of intake, so a high level of exposure for the general population in the European Union, and still the thresholds for use of nitrates and nitrates in meat-based products are relatively high and mostly unchanged, despite something is going on. But it will take time. And the intended use of a food is also relevant, and this will be relevant, as we will see, also in case of upcycling food products, food byproducts, because the microbiological contamination can at least be seriously mitigated, for example, by thermal processes. Okay, we can go on. Flexibility is another concept that can be applied in many areas of the food European food law, because, as I anticipated, this set of rules is a set of general principles that have to be implemented and respected by an extremely huge variety of enterprises. And to this end, it is recurrent in this legislation to find expressions like if necessary, if appropriate, if adequate, if sufficient, meaning that the self-control, the risk analysis, starting from the perspective of the food operator, ought to guide the decision on where to implement certain measures or not. Okay. Primary products that, as I said, make a difference because they are still subject to a much lighter set of requirements, starting from the food safety requirements, include either the natural ones, the stock farm ones, the hunting and the fishing ones. Okay. And primary production is, let's say, the farmers and breeders and fishers and hunters activity. Okay. Then okay, we can go on and still go on. Okay. Here you can, yeah, here you find the basic requirements provided in the hygiene 1 regulation. So the basic requirements either at the primary production stage are protection against contamination, cleanliness, water use, phytosanitary and veterinary products. And as for phytosanitary products, we remember the farmers have to keep a register of the treatments with pesticides they make every time. And this register is now going to be implemented from the physical to the digital stage. It will take some months, but the time has come. Whereas the veterinary register has been already digitalized since 2017 in Italy. Always guides for hygiene practice are being applied all over the place. Okay, you can go. Whereas in the phases that are that follow the primary production, there's no more reference just to the good practices, but also to the HSSF-based procedures. Despite, as I told, the European Commission provides also the chance of using the best practices, so the so-called prerequisites manuals as a basis to be added with the consideration of at least the major risks of every activity. And always, and this is an example of flexibility, either documents and records to be kept are proportionate to the complexity of the organization and the nature and the levels of risk, especially of the activities that are in place. Okay. Training is one of the most important aspects in order to guarantee food safety, and it's still unfortunately pretty poor, especially in micro enterprises, except for those who are working in the animal production, because they are subject to the specific rules of hygiene too. So they work in the white chamber. They're subject to veterinary controls that, at least in Italy, are very tight. Okay. One of the principal news of the hygiene package, as I said, and before the hygiene package of the General Food Law is the provision that all operators must be at least registered, whereas those that must have their establishment approved by the public authorities after an inspection of the same control authorities are those who work in the animal production, as well as those who provide those who prepare food for specific groups. And according to member states' legislation, even the producers of food supplements and the producers of foods with the addition of nutrients nutrients and other substances like vitamins and minerals are also can be also subject to authorization instead of registration upon national legislation. For example, in Italy, all food supplements and all foods with additional nutrients and micronutrients producers must be approved. Then also shops must be registered, brokers and importers, and the regulation itself, the Hygiene 1 regulation clarifies that the approval cannot be given without a preliminary control on site. Okay. Again, the good practices manuals and the trade associations' role in helping the constituencies, the members to better implement and to the safety procedure. Okay. Derogations, and let's go on. About the Hygiene 2, about Hygiene 2 regulation, as I said, is not applicable to the operators who work with composite products like pizza and frozen and ready-to-eat foods made of already prepared food of animal origins and food of vegetable origins. And it applies, therefore, only to those operators who deal with the food of animal origin, those who manufacture the food of animal origin, from the slaughterhouse to the enterprise who just slices ham, for example. The only excluded activities, and this is very important, is the retail and also small quantity supply, direct supply, like local markets and domestic private use, with the attention on the word domestic. That means family and not just friends and others, as it regards to slaughtering animals, for example, in Italy. Okay. These are the unprocessed products. Okay. These are the processed ones. We go on. And here is the definition of composite products, as I told. Okay. This is it. The specific further requirements provided by Hygiene 2 regulation include the factory registration mark or the health mark that have both to be issued by the veterinarians, and the second, the health mark, is the one provided now only for bovine meats and for fresh meats. There is a provision of information, as I already said, on either on live animals and the treatments that these animals, the veterinary treatments, the veterinary medicine they have received during their lives, and then also and this information has to be brought to and delivered to the abattoir or the slaughterhouse. Then and from there over, the traceability is, as I said, quite stricter. Okay. The approval is required, as already said, for these kinds of operators. Okay. And there are other rules, of which one of the most interesting for not just for veterinaries but also for ordinary consumers is the notion of mechanically separated or mechanically extracted meat that is provided exactly in this hygiene 2 regulation. If we all knew what is mechanically separated or mechanically extracted meat, I believe the sale of würstels and other ready-to-eat products containing those ingredients will dramatically reduce. Okay. Okay. The microbiological criteria obviously provide that all food operators are obliged to comply with these criteria that are relevant for food safety, for the microbiological safety of foods. And in order to doing so, the food operators have to perform tests and taking samples and analysis, and in order to check the conformity of the products and to the criteria, and also to implement corrective actions in case the criteria are not addressed. Corrective actions do not only mean to throw the contaminated products in the bin, not to incinerate them, but also to use thermal treatments in order to inactivate certain pathogens where there are thermoresistant, where they are not thermoresistant, and also it can the corrective action can take the form of a different destiny of the product, either for feed rather than food, or for other uses. Okay. There's a main difference between product criteria and process criteria, because product criteria define the acceptability of the product, and it can only be applied to the finished product, because and it has to be checked all over the shelf life that is provided voluntarily by the responsible operator, who has the role to also to define the expiration date or the use by date of the food he places on the market. Whereas the process criteria only define the acceptability of the process, and they are applied only during the productive process. It still happens sometimes to see control authorities making samples and performing analysis for process criteria on final products, and this is an error, and this doesn't mean anything as for the safety of the final product, because for example, Escherichia coli, which is, or Campylobacter, that are two of the most common pathogens, can be easily inactivated by a proper cooking of meat product. And so even when their presence is found within the production place, but before the thermal process to which the products, the meat products, are subject, this this apparent non-compliance has no significance. Okay. Here are the microbiological criteria defined by Regulation 2073. Okay. And the food chain information that the breeders have to bring to the abattoir, the slaughterhouse, and that are necessary in order to guarantee the healthiness of the animals before the transformation into food products. Okay. Okay, we can go on. And I would say, okay, go. Right, this is a reference to the small and medium enterprises that as I already said, are subject to flexibility. Okay. And here you find the roots of the new era of European food law. The so-called allergens directive was then implemented within the Food Information to Consumers Regulation 1169 year 2011, whereas the official controls regulation has been amended by the following 625 year 2017, and a food contact materials regulation 193504, which is of great relevance, can be considered as a, as a brother of the little brother of the general food law, providing similar criteria in order to guarantee the safety of every kind of materials or object that are in contact with food, either kitchen utensils and food containers, and materials that are used for both uses. But still, after 20 years, that regulation, the food contact materials regulation, hasn't been implemented for the widest majority of materials that are used in food utensils and containers, except for plastics. And today there's a huge problem of food safety related to food contact materials, either in the plastic sector, and I make a specific reference to some substances like the PFAS, the perfluoroalkyl substances, like many others that are recognized officially as endocrine disruptors, which are still used in plastic bottles and many other food containers, as well as there are problems with the certain types of inks, with metals, with all the materials that have been regulated only at national levels. And if you look for for food contact materials on the Great Italian Food Trade website, you will find quite a few articles. Also useful in order to see where the European Commission and the European legislator hasn't reached yet a proper level of guarantee of safety on these products. The JRC, the Joint Research Center, the European Commission, has somehow tried to fill the gap by providing extensive guidelines to the official controls authorities in order to let them check the safety of these materials, even beyond the poor requisites of the general regulation, or let's say the two general requisites of the FCM regulations. And then another regulation that is of great relevance in the food safety sector is the 39605 on about maximum residue levels of pesticides, of particular relevance because even these days, today in Brussels, there was this morning there was a massive protest of farmers in Rue de la Loi and in Place Luxembourg, where the European Commission and the European Parliament have their headquarters, respectively. One of the arguments of the protesters is the double standard that is still in place as regards to the food safety requirements provided for food products that are produced in Europe and those who are that are imported from third countries. Actually, they ought to follow the same requisites, and this is provided by Articles 11 and 12 of the General Food Law. So same level of food safety ought to be guaranteed either on foods that are produced in Europe and exported to third countries, and to foods that are produced in third countries and imported into Europe. But indeed, if you look at the implementation acts of this regulation 39605, you will find that there is still a level of acceptance of the presence of residues of pesticides that are banned in Europe when the presence is found in fruits and veggies or cereals or other products from third countries. And this is one of the issues at stake within the protests, and it is also related to the free trade agreements that have been made between the European Union on one side and many other countries, starting from the Mercosur countries. This is one of the agreements with more problems from this point of view, but also the agreement with Indonesia that is going to be defined in the next years probably, and some others. The agreement with Canada, and one of the protests in Italy is related to the presence of glyphosate in much higher quantities on grains cultivated in Canada or the United States rather than those cultivated in the south of Italy or in other Mediterranean countries, because indeed there is a ban in Europe to use glyphosate after harvest, whereas it is currently used after harvest with the specific purpose of drying wet harvests in cold and wet countries like the Saskatchewan plain is in Canada. Okay, and this was, I would say, a preliminary introduction to the food and feed safety that is of extreme importance when we think and at how to reduce food waste or food loss, and how to transform and to upcycle food byproducts into new foods, because all these rules are always to be precisely kept in mind. Is there any question about what we just shared?
Now, Dario has spoken about the requirements of General Food Law and food hygiene, the hygiene package. So the requirements that are needed to be complied with in order to produce and market food which is compliant with safety requirements. Now we'll talk about what happens when products of animal origin are excluded from the food supply chain. Or to better say, what are the conditions that have to be complied with in order that products of animal origin may be considered food or animal byproducts. To start, it is necessary to define what animal byproducts are. They are regulated by, as you can see, Regulation 1069 of the 2009, the so-called Animal Byproduct Regulation, or ABP regulation, and the implementing measures, which describes how these animal byproducts have to be processed, managed, and controlled also by official control authorities, is the Regulation 142 of the 2011. As you can see, the definition is here reported. So animal byproducts are any part of an animal or derived products which are not intended for direct human consumption. So there are some examples like carcasses, organs, blood, milk, and so-called derived products, which are products obtained from using animal byproducts as, let's say, ingredients to produce them. Some examples that maybe we'll see also later in the presentation are, for example, fish meal, fish oil, gelatin, collagen, as we have seen in the previous presentation, but which are not intended anymore to be destined for human consumption. So even if they comply with Food Hygiene 1 and 2 regulation, if the animal byproducts status is acquired, there is no possibility for them to be used for food production. The ABP regulation provides some general rules, such, for example, the HACCP requirements as defined in the Food Hygiene Regulation 1, of course, in this case applied to the manufacturing and processing and distribution of animal byproducts. But what is most important to know at the beginning is the classification of these animal byproducts. As you can see, there are 3 categories divided from the first one to the latest one according to their degree of risk. So the category 1 includes the materials which have the highest degree of risk, which, for example, materials which are suspected or are infected by prions, other materials, other agents responsible for transmissible spongiform encephalopathies. Category 2, which is not really pertinent for our topics, is it includes more animal byproducts such as manure and feces, as you can see, or other animals which cannot be more used, but there are a specific a particular condition which does not apply to our situation. And the most important category, which is also relevant for the valorization of these animal byproducts for other uses in other supply chains, is the category 3. So this includes, as I said before, some products such as fish meal, fish oil, and so on, or also wall animals, which for different reasons cannot be destined for human consumption. In fact, I provided a specific focus on category 3 animal byproducts. So they derive from manufacturing of food products. For example, in the fish sector, the heads, the skins, and other parts obtained from fishing manufacturing, for example, the production fillet, the residual parts of cutting of fish used for the manufacturing of fillets, if not valorized and if not preserved within the food supply chain, should be necessarily considered as animal byproduct, even if they are compliant with the provisions of food hygiene and the general food law. It is enough to remove this process from the food supply chain that the status, the condition of animal byproduct is acquired by these materials. As I said before, also aquatic animals or their parts, even if there are no signs of diseases which are transmissible to humans or other animals, are also considered as such, as animal byproduct. Yes, in fact, I remember correctly that I provided some examples, not only of which what may be considered as such, but also a potential destination of uses. These are regulated, are included by Article 33 of ABP regulation. You can see there are, for example, animal feed, fertilizer and soil improvers, cosmetic products, medical devices, medicinal products, veterinary medicinal products, and fuels, different kind of fuels, and also other derived products. To use sorry if I repeat animal byproducts too much, ABPs, to use ABPs as ingredients to obtain these derived products, it is necessary to comply with the requirements of the it's important to comply to reach, the so-called endpoint of manufacturing chain. So the regulation states that it is necessary to reach this specific status, this specific point in the manufacturing chain, which is different for each kind, for each type of processing. So the production of animal feed have a different endpoint than the production of cosmetic products. It is necessary to verify between the two regulations. I mean the ABP regulation, the specific regulation. For example, the cosmetic products is regulated by 1223 of the 2009. So when the provisions of the two regulations comply, it is possible to determine whether the endpoint is reached. Organic fertilizer and soil improvers have particular provision, since there is a delegated regulation adopted in the past year, the delegated regulation 1605 of the 2023, that include the specific provisions for to say when the endpoint of manufacturing chain is reached in the production of this product. It was not stated before, since there were some particular requirements included in the regulation of fertilizer and soil improvers, and for this reason were lately provided thanks to this regulation. So it's now possible to not be compliant with the specific provision of animal byproduct regulation, but to obtain fertilizer and soil improvers according to the dedicated regulation, and commercialize products, labeling them as such. Before this dedicated regulation, fertilizers and soil improvers were considered only as animal byproducts. I reported, as you can see, different examples of fish animal byproducts, which may be used as materials to obtain these products. For example, fish oil, and especially fish meal, are the most interesting BPs from fishery products. We may dare to say that maybe fish meal has even higher value than the fish itself, the market value, since there is a lot of side stream obtained from the manufacturing of fish products, between 50–60%. And for cosmetic products, here, okay, I'm sorry, I was checking for a thing, but I will describe why it is not present. For example, for cosmetic products, collagen, gelatin, as you know, they may be used as ingredients for creams or other cosmetic products for skincare. I was checking for a food supplement, but of course, if animal byproducts regulation exclude from its scope of application foods, so it's impossible to use them for the manufacturing of food products, food supplements cannot be included in the list. These are some examples of what the implementing measures that are described in the Regulation 142 of the 2011. So the ABP regulation gives the structure, the skeleton of the provisions that need to be complied with, but the Regulation 142 of 2011 gives the specific provision that are needed to obtain to market ABPs which are safe for the human health, animal health, and for the environment. Some example of requirements are the documentation. So it is important that each transfer of ABPs between an operator to another is accompanied with a specific documentation, which is mainly the official certification or commercial certification, commercial document, and in some specific case it may be required the use of the health certificate. As required in the General Food Law, also in ABP regulation, is important to apply a traceability system that permits to these ABPs to be tracked from the starting point, in this case, so where the ABPs are generated, up to their destination, which may be considered as the endpoint of the manufacturing chain. Whether these ABPs have to be exported or imported from third countries or from the European Union to third countries, it is necessary to ask authorization and obtain the notification from competent authorities, or if there is transit, so these ABPs pass from a member state and goes or comes from a third country. Also, in the registration and approval requirements also apply here. So it is necessary, according to the specific case, to ask to national competent authorities to be registered or approved for their facility plans, but also for other kind of let's say companies. For example, universities need to be registered even if they have to use animal byproducts for scientific purposes, but also in the case of food industry or other kind of industry. So there is no possibility, let's say like this, there is a mandatory requirement for all operators who handles animal byproducts to be registered or to be approved. Okay, according to the classification that I shown at the beginning, it is also necessary to mark the boxes or the vehicles which are used to transport ABPs, specifically describing which kind of category is the specific kind of animal byproducts category. And for each one, it is necessary to associate a specific color. For example, category 1 is black, category 2 is yellow, and category 3 is green. Okay, when a food product is processed, as I said before, there is the possibility that some residual side streams are obtained. I said also that it is possible to destine them to food production, for example, to use skin to obtain collagen or gelatin. But it is necessary that the following phases of manufacturing and processing of these skins are aligned to the are contained also within the food supply chain. So the same operator or mainly different operators need to be registered or approved as food business operator. So it is enough that the following activities are performed by operators which are not registered or approved as food business operator, in order to classify the side stream as animal byproduct. But it may also happen that these operators decide for some reason to throw away or to not process these ABPs for other uses. In this case, it is the choice of the operator to obtain animal byproducts, which are, of course, have to be managed according to the specific provisions. In the other case, in the other examples that I explained and I shown before, animal byproducts are defined by law, since they are moved and they are transferred to what is considered as a non-food business operator. So, for example, the manufacturer of food cosmetic products, feed products, and the other kind of example that I've shown to you before. In fact, the classification of animal byproduct is irreversible, and when the decision is made by the operator, it is not possible to come back. This is a scheme that I've prepared, a decisional tree that I prepared, of course, in a simplified form that may be useful to define whether a product of animal origin may be classified as food or as animal byproduct. So there are some questions that are needed to be answered too. As you can see, if the product, okay, I forgot to specify an important passage, but I will describe it now. And I said before that Article 14 of General Food Law states whether a food may be considered a risk for the health. So it may be injurious, or it may be unfit for human consumption. If the food is considered as injurious for human health, it cannot be considered as category 3 material. There is some, yes, there is a little mistake here. It may be considered as animal byproduct, but it should be determined whether it is category 1 or category 3. If it's not injurious or unfit for human consumption, if the material does not leave the food supply chain, as I said before, it may be considered as food. There is an additional passage here that I wanted to describe, that is the status of novel food. I don't know if you know what a novel food is. It is a food that has not history of safe consumption within the European Union or one of its member states before after the 15th of May of the 1997. But before this date, the novel food regulation does not apply. In this case, in fact, it is considered as not novel food. It may be the case of fish oil, fish meal that are regulated by the general the Food Hygiene Regulation 2. But even if they are not considered as not novel food, for example, if we introduce an enrichment of their nutritional value, if there is a novel food process and other changes that may be included in the novel food regulation, even the same food product may be considered and comply with the novel food regulation and need a pre-market authorization. To go back to the animal byproduct status, the only case where they may be considered as waste is when they're intended to be disposed of. So if we decide to throw away, to dispose of animal byproducts, this is the only case where they are considered as waste. But before this, they're only considered as ABPs. When used for the production of derived products, according to their status, they may be classified within one of the three category materials that we have seen before. And I think this is the conclusion of the presentation, if I don't remember wrong. This is another short, let's say, example of what may be the destination of products of animal origin according to their status. It's similar to the example that I presented before, but I also introduced the possible destination of uses, which are food products or food supplements, even if they are not novel food or they are novel food, or for category 3 material, it is possible to use the intermediate products, which are a sort of pre-processed animal byproducts, to obtain cosmetic ingredients. And that's it. This is the consortium of the coefficient projects, and you can see the different partners, which include also NIGE, Ticass, us, in the form of WISE, and other partners, mainly from Liguria, but also other part of Italy and the European Union and third countries. Stop to share